All right, welcome back. Hononegah Honors, Algebra 2, Section 8.3. We're now going to talk about what's known as a geometric sequence. So the last time in Section 8.2, we talked about arithmetic sequence in which you're adding the same number every time. So a geometric sequence is when you are multiplying. And I noticed that I said multiplying. I didn't say dividing. So if you look at it and say, well, it's dividing by 2, then technically it's multiplying by a half. So everything's going to be the common ratio. So a geometric sequence is the common ratio of any term to the previous term is a constant. This constant ratio is called a common ratio. It's denoted by an R. So now tell whether or not this is a geometric sequence. Geometric sequences are little bigger numbers sometimes. So you're multiplying each time here times 6. So times 6 times 6. So yes, this would be geometric. Now the next one, although it is a very cool pattern, it's adding 2 each time on top and adding 2 each time on the bottom. So it is a cool pattern, but not a geometric sequence. This is actually 2n minus 1 over 2n. So it is a pretty cool pattern, but not geometric. So that kind of goes back to section 8.1 in which you had to write a pattern for the numbers. So this is a pretty cool rule, but not necessarily geometric for sure. So formula, and you will be given this formula. A sub n is equal to a sub 1 r, and then raised to the, sorry there, I might have been interrupted. Formula. So a sub n equals a sub 1 r raised to the n minus 1. The only two things you need to know is what is a sub 1, so what is the first number in the sequence, and what is the common ratio in the sequence. So again, similar to arithmetic, you need 2 pieces of information in order to write a rule. So in this first one, we're going to write the rule for the nth term and then find a sub 10. So a sub 1 and r, the only 2 things you need to know. So a sub 1 is 6, and the rule, what is happening each time. Remember, if it's dividing by 3, which it is, you're technically multiplying by 1/3. So the rule is always the multiplication, not the division. So the formula, a sub n is equal to a sub 1 r raised to the n minus 1. So I know a sub 1. And usually, I know I put parentheses around both of them. Usually I always put parentheses around your r. So a sub 1 is 6. And then r, and you need parentheses, especially when it's negative. So I recommend putting parentheses around your r. So r raised to the n minus 1. So now if I want to find the 10th term of the sequence, then I'm going to do 6, 1/3 raised to the, now it's 10 minus 1. So when you're putting in your calculator, I would recommend putting in a 9. So you're talking about 6 times 1/3 raised to the 9th power. Now, this did not go, just do 3 raised to the 9th. So I ended up getting 1 over, I ended up getting a real nasty decimal. So when that happens, just do the number raised to the power. And so 6 divided by 1,000 or 19,683. And so, and there it is. Next one. It says write the rule. So I need a sub 1, which is 10, and r, which is 2. So a sub n equals a sub 1, r raised to the n minus 1. So there's your rule. And now I want to know what the 10th. So I'm taking 2 to the 9th times 10 and get 5,120. Now they're not going to give you as much information. Remember, the 2 things you need to know in order to write a rule is a sub 1 and r. So this time they're going to still give me r. So they're giving me a common ratio of 2/3, but they're giving me another sequence, another number, a sub 5. A sub n is equal to a sub 1 r raised to the n minus 1. So if I know what a sub 5 is, and I know what r is, so r is 2/3. So now 32 would equal a sub 1, 2/3 to the 4th power. And so 2/3 to the 4th power would be 16/81. So if I multiply both sides by 81 and then divide by 16, 81 would be 162. So my rule for a sub n would be a sub 1 r raised to the n minus 1. Now, they want the first 6 terms of the sequence. So 162 is the first one. Second one, if I plug 2 in, if I plug 2 in for n, I get 108. If I plug 3 in for n, I get 72. 4 in for n. 5 in for n. 6 in for n. So now this one is actually 64 thirds. So those are the first 6 terms of the sequence. Now they're really getting hard because they're not giving me a sub 1 and they're not giving me r. So if you remember right, and when we did arithmetic, we kind of set up 2 different equations. So we're going to do the same thing here. So a sub n would equal a sub 1 r raised to the n minus 1. So in the first one, I know that 20 would equal a sub 1 times r raised to the second, which is be 3 minus 1. So there's the equation for the first one. Second one, negative 160 would equal a sub 1 r raised to the 6 minus 1, which is 5. Here's what I would recommend. Solve this for a sub 1. And I'm going to solve this one also for a sub 1. So that means I have 2 equations both solved for a sub 1, which means they must be equal to each other since they both equal a sub 1. Cross multiply. Now here's what I would recommend. Always divide by the smaller one. So I'm going to divide both sides by r to the second. So I have 20 r to the third equals negative 160. Divide by 20. So r to the third equals negative 8. Take the cube root of both sides, so r must be negative 2. Plug negative 2 back in. Okay, so I need to find a sub 1. So if I plug negative 2 back in for either one of these, 20 negative 2 squared equals a sub 1. That means a sub 1 must be 5. So my rule, if I know a sub 1 is 5, and I know the r is negative 2, it would be a sub n equals, a sub n equals a sub 1 r raised to the n minus 1. Sum. So finding the sum of a finite, and we're going to actually talk about infinite geometric sequences later, but a finite geometric sequence, the expression formed by adding the terms in the geometric sequence is called a geometric series. So the formula for a geometric series, it gets a little bit more complicated than some of the other formulas we have, but you need to know a sub 1, you need to know r, or the common ratio, and you need to know n, the number of terms that we're talking about. So it's a sub 1 parenthesis 1 minus r raised to the nth power divided by 1 minus r. So I need, once again, what is a sub 1, what is r, and what is n? Those are the 3 pieces of information you need to know to use the sum formula, and the sum formula will be given to you. So now, let's plug the 1 in. If I plug 1 into the equation, I get 4. R. So what is the common ratio? What is being multiplied each time? And so for some of you, you may want to plug 2 in, plug 3 in, plug 4 in, and see if you can see the pattern, but the ratio is 3. It's the number being raised to the k minus 1 power. So that is the ratio is 3. And how many terms are we talking about here? Now, this is a little bit confusing, okay? but there's going to be 10 terms. So do I have enough information to find the sum? Yes. First term, 1 minus r raised to the nth power divided by 1 minus r. A little calculator work right now. So I'm going to plug this into my calculator now, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up a calculator so we have that. So 1 minus 3 raised to the 10th. I'm going to do 1 minus, let's try this again, 1 minus 3 raised to the 10th power. Having a little issue there. Let's see if I can fix this. All right, there we go. 10th power. So there's the top of the fraction divided by 1 minus r. And I could have just put negative 2 in there probably. So there's the fractional work. And then it's times a sub 1. So times, what is a sub 1 again? 4. I'm going to times that by 4. And so the sum is 118,096. So 118,096 would be the sum. Now, this one is pretty complicated, and some of you are probably going to ask me, where in the world am I ever going to need to know this? And here is actually the real-world application of this. You're going to calculate the monthly payment M in dollars for a loan using this formula. L is the amount of the loan, so how much money. Now, there is a little bit of a quirk here, and they're not being very nice. I is the monthly interest rate, and T is the term in months. So now they're taking out a 3-year loan. So that is not 3 in our formula. It's 36 months. So I multiply 12 months in a year. And the interest rate is the annual interest rate or a yearly interest rate. So 12% divided by 12. So again, it's not very nice in that respects. So, which is 0.01. It's giving you this information in years, but asking for it in months. All right, so I want to do the bottom, and then we're going to deal with everything else. So the bottom is a sum. I'm going to scroll up and down here, but the sum formula says a sub 1, 1 minus r raised to the nth over 1 minus r. So that is the sum formula for a geometric sequence. Now let's go back up here. What is a sub 1 in this particular situation? So what happens if I plug 1 in? So this is the k equaling 1. This is the 36. 1 over 1 plus I. We found I to be 0.01 raised to the k. So when I plug in k, I plug in 1. A sub 1 in this case is 1 over 1.01. And I'm just going to leave it as a fraction, but that is your a sub 1. R. So what is happening each time? You're multiplying by 1 over 1.01. There's your R. And the N is 36 months. So I have enough information to use the sum formula to find the bottom of that fraction. So I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit. See if I can keep this on the page. All right. So calculator, 1 over 1.01, 1 minus 1.01 raised to the 36th power, and then 1 minus 1 over 1.01. So there's a lot of 1 over 1.01 that has to be done here. So here we go. Let's go back to my calculator and see if we can get this right. I want to do everything in the parentheses first. So I need 1 minus 1 over 1.01. Let's actually figure out what 1 divided by 1.01 is. Maybe that would be helpful. It's a decimal, so I really don't want that. But let's raise that to the 36th power. And so 1 minus that answer is the top of our fraction. Divided by, the bottom of our fraction is 1 minus, and we'll just go ahead and put in 1 divided by 1.01. So there's the parentheses times 1 divided by 1.001. So there is the bottom of our fraction. Now, so next, I want to take the actual loan amount. So going back over here. So it's the L is $10,000 loan. So if I take 10,000 divided by my sum, so 10,000 divided by my sum, so the previous answer that I just had, my monthly payment is $332.14. $332.14. Your homework assignment is out of the book. If you have any questions or concerns, please make sure you talk to your teacher, and good luck.